Okay, so this game is still a demo, but the way they relayed the story shows that there was some kind of sabotage of the ship that resulted in the crash and causing the crew to be stranded in space. If you don't know what I'm talking about Mouthwashing, a new sci-fi horror game created by the developer of How Fish is Made. The game begins with a conversation between the Captain Curly and Nurse Anya 5 days before the crash. It seems to be some kind of a psychological or medical evaluation of Captain Curly, who seems to be having trouble sleeping, and he asks Anya for her professional opinion for if the company would still let him fly the ship in his current state of health. Before Anya can answer, the scene transitions to a hallway with scrambled letters on screen. The letters turn out to be ETKAISSKIYEELRTTPAOBN, but they could be different from person to person. The first part can be scrambled back to take or Kate, but take makes sense, while the second part unscrambles to presentability or responsibility, but only if you take a few letters out. I think the full word is take responsibility, and the dev just added a few extra words to throw off someone trying to decipher it, considering no 17 word combinations are found with the minimum word being 14 for presentability, but it does not make sense to be placed with take. Anyways, the transition leads to a nightmare-like sequence where an unnamed crewmate walks around the hallways of the ship, which eventually becomes more broken down the more you explore it, as well as the creepy appearance of the company mascot that looks as if it is deformed. The scene then transitions to 2 months after the crash, and we get to meet the other crew members of the ship discussing whether they should breach the cargo for their survival or not, with Jimmy, now second in command, demanding that they open it. We then take control of Jimmy and interact with other crewmates. Daisuke, an engineer working alongside Swansea, seems to be the immature kind of guy, telling about how if they survive, then they'll be famous. Swansea, the head engineer, seems to be the nihilistic kind, not trusting anything or anyone, emphasizing on the fact that he values money more than his own life. And finally, Anya, the nurse, who seems like she is not suited to be a nurse, considering how she can't stand the sound of hearing their former captain in pain, even going as far as to ask Jimmy to help her with administrating Curly's pain medication. And then finally we have Jimmy, who with his dialogue seems to be narcissistic in nature, stealing the role of captain from Curly and belittling Anya. After administrating the painkillers to Curly, they all head for the storage bay, where Jimmy uses a UV light to open the door, only to find a boatload of mouthwash supplies called Raisin Breath. They all lose hope after this discovery, as the space expedition is of a duration of over 380 days and only 147 days have passed. Swansea is the first to accept his fate and chugs the bottle of mouthwash down, with everyone looking at him in fear. The scene then transitions once again with Curly sitting beside Jimmy with a cake, and the surroundings show a more dilapidated ship with bottles of mouthwash piled up and no other crew members inside. Curly and Jimmy have a heart-to-heart, with Jimmy leaving to find a knife to cut the cake with. He ventures into the hallways lined with heaps of empty mouthwash bottles and eventually reaches the cockpit of the ship, where an axe can be found embedded on the captain's seat. He picks it up and gets the prompt to feast, with a giant eyeball appearing on screen. Jimmy then makes his way back to Curly, who is now lying on the table with no cake on side, and Jimmy attacks Curly. The scene transitions one last time to 5 days before the crash, with Anya giving her professional opinion from the beginning of the game, but instead of Curly, it's Jimmy that she is evaluating, and eventually flashing images appear with Curly lying on bed with a text reading, "I hope this hurts." Now, considering that this is just a demo, there's not much story going on to tell about what exactly is going on. But we can conclude that the main character, Jimmy, is responsible for the events of the game. Now again, I want to elaborate that this is just a theory. With the way Jimmy speaks to Anya about Curly during the second half of the game, it seems like Jimmy has some sort of malice towards Curly, stripping him of his title of captain and blaming him for trying to crash the ship and killing everyone on board. However, that is not the case as shown by the final sequence of the game where they show the axe embedded on the captain's chair. It seems that there was some kind of struggle prior to the crash, and it may be that it was Jimmy that attacked Curly. This idea is shown again in motion by the end of the game where Jimmy attacks Curly with the axe. It could be that Jimmy is a mental patient, which is the reason why psychological evaluations are made mandatory by the company twice a month, because crewmates may have had a history of going haywire during their space journeys. It could also mean that Jimmy might have had a mental breakdown with seeing hallucinations of the deformed company mascot, as well as the eyes shown by the last half of the game. And Jimmy might have attacked the mascot from the beginning, who might have turned out to be Curly, which is the reason why the axe was present on the captain's chair, showing the struggle that occurred prior to the crash. This could also show why the scrambled text appears talking about taking responsibility, because it is Jimmy's own consciousness and guilt trying to make him admit his faults, but since his mind is so much broken, he cannot do it, which is also why there are extra letters present in responsibility part. All in all, everything will be revealed when the final version of the game is released. Till then, this is the best I could include in my explanation. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.